We're back. Let's go check on Jeff real quick. I think he's in here painting. I'm coming! Oh my! Last week he did. That's why he didn't show up in the video. In replacement, you get Shane. Hi. We're gonna show you how to open these bug eye headlights. A lot of you guys buy the DIY kit, which is the low high beam projector all in one, but we don't have any video on like showing you how to open these. So you can see this set is already open, but we're gonna take the other set that's in the oven and get those opened up for you. Shane, how long do we keep them in the oven and at what temperature?
15 minutes at 220 degrees. Panel popper tool that we use to open lights. They're really nice. Find a little spot and I just start prying a little bit at a time. Gotta watch where these little tabs are, that you don't stretch out this piece. Get yourself a little screwdriver, just kind of hold it open. Little tab there. A few more tabs. You got one up here.
Are there any screws on these lenses?
There are two. There's a screw usually here and a screw in this spot right about here.
Hidden in the little fins back there.
Tab here and a tab here. Just as you're Brian, get those out so you don't stretch it, like I said. Make sure you don't get any glue on the chrome. If you do, not that big of a deal. You can get it off.
Oh, it's a big deal. I thought you can't get it off. You can get it off?
Yeah, you can get it off. It's better when it's nice and warm to take it off. Then you can just take your flathead. You can go through the channel, squish this glue down, take the excess out. Because you're going to add more glue. Well, I would recommend adding more glue. That's why we do it this way. Fresh seal. Just got to get all the glue off the lens. That's what I use this for. Just go around. Kind of push it on, pull it off. Doesn't have to be perfect, but when you do it enough times, you figure out a real quick, easy way to do it, and you get most of it off.
Shane, would you say you're the fastest at doing this here?
Probably. So
like I said, this is useful information for anybody who's buying our 02 to 03 WRX, well, Impreza WRX DIY kit. Comes with the resealing rubber, the H1 projector, which we actually have one. Well, a box of it right here. So that's the most common swap that we do, but you can do D2S on those too, right? D2S, micro D2S.
Yeah, it's just a lot more trimming.
Yeah. But that's what comes in your kit right here. So this is the first step you're gonna have to do. Open your lights.
Alright, so yeah, we're going to continue here with pulling the chrome bowls out so that we can retrofit these. You're going to need a 10 mil for this adjuster and a Phillips head and that adjuster. Also, you're going to need another panel popper tool. In here, there's a ball joint. Just stick this above the ball joint right where there's a nut part. I'll show you when I take it out. Just pry up just a little bit and you'll see that's nice and loose. Go back and forth, taking your time with these. Go slow, take a little bit at a time. That way you don't end up stretching out or bending the adjusters or stretching out the plastic that they screw into. Straight.
Boom, she's out.
Now what we do with this piece, we don't use this. This gets thrown out. We don't need this when we do the retrofit. It's in the way. Pretty easy. There's a screw right here. Phillips head. Just unscrew that, pull it out. So grab our bowls, start trimming these, and got a projector already in the dirty room. Got our little cutoff. You don't have to wear protection, but I like it. We use a vacuum to create less dust. As you can see that it all went into there. Well, most of it went into there, not all in the air, and you don't have to worry about wearing a mask while doing this. Probably still wear a mask doing this, but it doesn't have to be exact. I am gonna end up putting this on the belt sander and getting that flat, but I do that as the last step. Once I get the projector, the back of the projector actually test fit and make sure I have it at the right angle in there to fit this. Just take
That's actually a smart idea. Just leave all the backings back here and then we just pick one.
That's pretty much what I've been doing. What we do, change this out. It's a little 45-degree cone angle or whatever angle it is considered. Then what we'll do with this, we'll come in We'll trim around here, inside hole here, and that'll give us the angle for this piece to sit. I'll show you as soon as I start trimming that, and you'll get a better idea. Now I've done this a few times, so I already know how to pre-cut these for these to sit in here, but I'll explain to you what you do. Normally I'll grind these little parts a little bit more. Sides, you don't have to do as much. And then up here at the top, you do got to take a good chunk of this part of the chrome out. When you're doing this, you don't have to worry too much about if you don't have a steady hand. If you hit around, usually the shroud actually covers a good portion of this. You'll see by the time we're done, especially this being a night breaker. So if you do tap a little bit around with the Dremel or drill, if you're using a drill, it's not that big of an issue. It gets covered. Now we test fit this. We'll stick this in. You'll see there it kind of sticks out. This is where I was saying we take it to the belt sander. We gotta take a good chunk of this off. Washer and the nut actually will hold this projector and stud mount it to the back here. What I do, make sure this is nice, somewhat level. You'll see it flat with that line in the back there along with the top of the projector. If you do this and then if you hold it firmly together and you can push it side to side and you can kind of see how this kind of wobbles. What I do there is I'll kind of slightly twist this while pushing, and you'll see there's some marks there and a mark about there. Shows you where you gotta trim a little bit more to get that to sit flat, nice and flush, so that way when you JB weld these in, they'll be nice and actually straight and not flexing while you're going down the road. We'll go back to seeing how this fits in there. Now the best, you do gotta try to get it as best to where you're gonna sit. It could sit different at a slight angle. That's about where it's gonna be. Still got a little bit of movement here, as you can kind of see it. There's my hands rocking a little bit. Again,
so you want it to sit as flush as possible, basically with like almost like a concave little holder.
Yeah, because then this will sit nice and flat and it'll be pointing straight out,
right,
and it won't
you
be
want
turned.
it to match the angle of like this dome shape, but in there.
So if you look at the back here, you can kind of see that it's not, there we go, now it's nice and flush. It's hard to see with it not perfectly sand down yet. Still has a little bit of play here. So again, we just mark it up a little bit and you'll see your marks.
It's right at the top. Hold on, let me see if we can use my finger. Right here, that tiny little dot right there, that's what he's referring to.
And since this is just a night breaker set that doesn't get any multicolor halos or switchback halos, we don't have to drill any holes for those wires to snake out the back. Now normally with those, what we do is I'll end up drilling a hole straight through here to open this up so that the wires can come out the bottom for the halo on the shroud. And if you have a demon eye, I'll drill a hole up here, get the wires for the demon eye to come out of the top of the projector that sits bolts here. The wires come out the back and will come right out this way, and then they all come down and you can go out the hole in the housing. Now that one is ready for when I need to belt sand it. So we'll come over and get this one prepped for the projector. Alright, so this is the part. We got these all set up so that the projector will sit nice and flush and it won't bounce around on you. Now, to get to the point where I was talking about sanding this down nice and flat with the belt sander. Alright, now to make sure you get a nice flat surface, what I normally do, there's other ways to do this, but it's just easier with the belt sander. If you have a cutoff wheel, you could use a cutoff wheel. It'll just take a little more patience on your end. But I'll use these marks here to figure out how flat I am, and that way we can make sure we get a nice flat surface, so that way the washer that holds the projector on, once you nut it on, it will stick out enough. So again, take this guy and stick it through, and until there's enough space for both the nut and the washer, which it's got to sit below this mark here, because that's where the bulb holder sits, and if the nut comes up and past this, bulb holder won't go back on. Now this is where I was talking about we use a vacuum, because you could see this is getting pretty messy. Without this normally got all over the bench. Now this is generally where I'll go to. You'll see all three of these nubs have a little bit of sanding in them. We'll blow this off real quick and get an actual look without all this dust here. Blew it off so that way we can see what we're doing now. As you can see, all through there, a little bit better without all that dust on there. It's pretty flat. Now we'll test fit here. Now you see the spacing between this actual flat part and of the bowl and where that bulb holder sits. That's good enough. You don't need more than that because it's not very thick washer or the nut. You'll actually sit right probably a few millimeters off of the bulb holder. Now on to the next one. One more thing I would add in, when you're doing this, if you're using a belt sander, the way I make sure I stay flat is by looking at this leg and this leg here where the adjusters are. And if you continue to try to keep that as flat as you can according to the belt sander, or if you're doing it, wherever, just try to keep those flat and you'll actually get yourself nice and flat circle here, and it'll be nice and good for that washer that we're gonna end up using. So now that we have these all done, we need to go grab the projectors from the parts room, and let's go do that. Got our fancy little inventory scanner here that we can grab parts out of our actual parts room. Scan this guy right here. Well, we can close that out. Grab our projectors. If you don't do this, Jake will come after you.
I got one question. What are those?
Now we got our projectors here. Take them both out.
So like we said before, these are the Acme H1s that we use in our night breaker sets, but you can roll with the Morimoto 8.0 H1s, the Micro D2S, Morimoto D2S if you want like a full 3-inch projector. These are just the Acme standard H1s. They're relatively the same thing from standard to super, so.
Now out of these kits, we don't use much of this stuff besides bulb retainer that comes in the kit. These two plugs for your high beam plug for your wire on the car side. They come with these. We don't use them. You can use them. I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend just doing it the way we're gonna do it. These are the washers I was talking about that we put on the back of the projector that sits on the back here. That's why I was saying you want that to be kind of pretty flat because it's a little concave. This will actually sit in there, nice tight fit. So we got our projectors. So what we're gonna need to do is this bulb holder right here that I've been talking about. We're gonna wanna take this and this nut off. There's 3 screws back here. I usually only take these bottom 2 completely out, loosen the top one, just because that way you don't have a chance of losing all of these screws if you are not working in a super spacious area like we are right now. If you kinda have a small workbench at home, best thing to do, set that and the 2 screws, pretty easy to lose. Set these together, take this off, set it with the washer. You're gonna need a 27 mil or a pair of channel locks will work just fine for that nut, but the 27 just helps. We'll clean these up. This is where wearing gloves will come in handy because then you don't leave your fingerprints on here, because if you do that, it actually will reflect off the back. And there's a chance that you might be able to see, behind the shroud on some. It's always best to make sure all of this is kind of clean. Now to clean this, like I was saying before, you don't want to use anything really kind of chemical wise. You just take a clean cloth and gently wipe in here. And what I'll do is I'll actually take the air gun, and if you look,
leaky air gun.
Yeah, a leaky air gun that we're too lazy to fix. There's little dust spots right there that towel's kind of hard to get into, and if you stick it in there too much, you'll end up scratching the
what?
I'll just kind of blow it, double check it, make sure everything's good, because once we glue the projector in there, there's no going back and there's no cleaning behind it. We gotta get 2 more little spots. So now that we have that clean, get some JB set up for us, do a little glob.
Do you always do a 1-to-1 with this?
Yes, always do a 1-to-1 with this. You'll get your best results. I use a pick. You can use whatever you have laying around. Picks are just easier to clean and easier to apply. Just kind of mix it. All right, now that we got that mixed up, this is gonna be the tricky part. We gotta stick these 2 high beam solenoid wires through that hole. Usually I leave those on because it helps these stay where I need them to. This is where I say wear gloves. It's this way, if you touch the chrome, you're not leaving fingerprints on it after cleaning it. Wire right here, all the way around. Someone's yelling on the phone in the background, you know. I'll grab the wires, pull them through. You do it nice and carefully and slow. You won't get JB weld anywhere. And you hold this. These little washers, they have a little tab here. That's for the top. You can see this little break in it. It sits right in there. Take the nut. Take your socket. Tighten that up by hand. And then this is where you want to make sure you get your orientation correct. Get it.
Now the lines that are going vertical, those are all going to be straight.
Yeah, those are all straight up and down.
You can use as a reference.
You can use these two. You can use as a reference along with that one in the back. I use the one in the back, and then I'll use these holes. So if you were to look straight on that, you could see it's nice and flat. Another thing you could do, if you look at the back here, now you see this screw is always going to be up, this is always going to be down. This is where the wire on the H1 bulb sit. That is always sitting down. So if you see how that's nice straight up and down with this, that's not the best reference, but you can always use that as your secondary backup if you have stared at this too long. I've done that a few times because I've stared at this too long and realized I can't tell. It's always good to have a buddy around. I always ask Cody.
Or me.
Once you have that, hold this firm, take the socket, and just make sure this is nice and tight. You don't gotta go crazy. You don't need to ratchet by hand because the JB weld will hold that nice and firmly. And then you just set that, and we'll set this aside. I usually let it dry for about a half hour to an hour. This is fast acting, usually good in about 10 minutes, but I'll usually do that and I'll go do something else that I need to done, like put glue in the back of those. Welded in there. We're gonna go get some shrouds for these bad boys. Lovely shelf of shrouds here. Came over here for some Apollo black shrouds. With these are 2.5 inch projectors. So we're gonna want these 2.5 inch projector adapters to
Shroud centric
3-inch shrouds. So now that we have our shrouds, we are gonna inspect them, make sure there's no marks or defects, because then we gotta paint them. We'll save these set for ones that we actually gotta paint. These look pretty good. Now with these adapters, just set them in here. They have little tabs, open parts for the 5 tabs that they line up with. Before I snap that in, what I'll usually do is I'll take a razor blade and I'll go around the edge, just kind of scraping it a little bit here. Now I do this because they always have this little bit of manufacturing kind of leftover slag on here. That actually causes these to slide onto these Acme projectors pretty poorly at first. And you'll be pushing extra hard. Once I do that, these
boys want you back.
I'm back, baby.
boys are back, baby. We don't have to do this with all projectors. It only seems to be with the Acme, these plastic lens holders. Press fit, just like that. Take it off.
So that just adapts the 2.5 inch projector to a full-size 3-inch projector shroud. Otherwise you'd be stuck with the mini shrouds, which don't look that great when they're just floating around in here. So the full-size one kind of fills the gap.
Alright, so now we're gonna go trim the shrouds. They have two little marks on there, little half circle here. What I was saying, these little quarter circles here, I'll usually put those up and down. Now these usually line up perfectly with these little marks. What I'll do is I'll mark the top one, tab that lines up best with the middle on the bottom, and I'll usually write driver side or passenger side. Once I'm done trimming these, they will go to the corresponding light, so that way we're not thinking, hey, you trimmed this for the wrong one. Let's get to it. We're back in here with the belt sander. If you have a belt sander, you could use it. If not, you can use a Dremel. You can use anything that can cut plastic. We just like to use a belt sander because it gives us a nice flat surface to work with. The bottom takes quite a bit of trimming on these. The top doesn't take very much. The top will almost just be a small indent here, whereas the bottom will be a good flat portion that we actually take almost up to here off. You'll see when I start trimming it. Now, when doing this, I'll take my time so that way I don't burn the plastic too much and get it to stick onto here, because then we're changing these pads very frequently for no reason. That will burn marks and grooves in this and throw off what you're actually sanding. And what I'll do is I'll come along and just kind of peel off some of this excess. Sometimes I'll take a razor blade. Once this gets soft enough, it's pretty easy to push through, get all that excess off. That's not going to be needed. You won't notice this much missing. And then we can continue. Now we have a ultrasonic cutter here. Same thing as a razor blade. It just makes it so you don't actually have to do any work besides step on this fancy pedal here. It actually vibrates the blade and heats up and cuts, as you can see, really smoothly. Gives us a nice clean edge. I'll do that every so often because this becomes just really flimsy and just gets in your way. Trim a little bit more and then we'll test fit, make sure I'm not going too much. I still got quite a bit to trim off as it's touching the bottom here and it's still not even lined up just yet. I usually do the bottom first because the top doesn't need very much trimming at all. Just keep trimming until this fits in here nicely enough to get the top. So we are pretty close now. You can see that it's pretty close to fitting down. It's still touching a little bit down here. And you can see we might actually not have to trim any of that upper part. We'll find out as soon as this bottom part gets fully seated in.
Hello.
Hello.
What are you doing?
I am peeling all this tape that took me a couple hours to put on. Ready for the satisfying part? Oh wow. I'm peeling this off so that when I clear coat these, having the clear coat on the inserts will just help seal in this edge. This is a 350Z shroud. So we are going to backlight this with some LEDs. If we painted it black like the customer wanted and didn't do this, nothing would shine through. So far I just did primer and base coat. Well, like I said, after I peel these off, I'll do clear coat, make it nice and shiny, and it'll help seal in these lines, the tape lines.
Now that we got the bottom trimmed to fit in there, I did end up having to trim the top a little bit. I can take this off and show you. The top, I just had to trim down. I didn't have to do anything crazy like flatten this piece out. I just had to trim inwards, or outwards I should say, a little groove here. The reason having these lines that come up and down vertically, they pop out. The shroud sits far enough back to where it actually has to come out and come around all of that, and then it'll continue around so that it clears those, and you're good to go after that. Now that we got this trimmed up and this sits in here nice and flush, we got it all trimmed. What our next step is, we will actually take a little bit of JB weld, put it on this ring here, put a little bit around each of these tabs, nothing crazy, and then put a little bit around the actual ring itself, so that way when we go to put this on the actual projector, it'll stay on the actual lens holder. Then we'll set these back in the housings and put them all back together.
Another thing that we do before getting these back together is they do come in like a half satin black. If we take a closer look at this, the paint that it comes with is not great. So these are satin black, but if you look at like the turn signal cup area, they start with the chrome right here and they spray it black, but you can see there's like overspray. Like they don't do a great job of spraying these. So either way, we're going to strip these down and respray them in a nicer satin black and fill in the turn signal cup anyways. So we're going to go ahead and ditch this. We're now over in Shane's normal area now these days. Much better lighting over here, even though it's pitch black out at 4 o'clock.
Is that a nice wagon?
You can't see it because it's dark. All Shane wants is rollers of his car.
Yeah.
And he'll get the rollers. These bad boys. are actually my headlights for my 04 WRX that I am sending off actually with Shane in a couple days to get PPF'd. We are going to pause for the day because the work is done for now. The housings, like I said, are getting painted, and then we will pick this up when we go ahead and reseal those lights. Like Shane said, they are the night breaker set, so they're not going to get any multicolor features. They're just going to get the projectors. That's it. So we'll pick this up when we're ready to reseal. Also, I thought I'd mention this. We stock work wheels now. Well, a bunch of different wheels, but we have a bunch of wheels in stock right here. I'll toss up some pictures of the ones that we do have that are ready to ship right away. If you guys are looking for custom wheels, we also do custom orders. Let us know what style you're looking for and we can get them ordered up for you.
We're back. I'm gonna start installing the bowls into the backings and get ready to clean them up. Start doing the process of sealing them.
What's up, dude?
Go the opposite of when we took them out. We'll take our time putting these in. Okay, you don't want to do too much of one side at once. You could possibly crack the fiberglass bowl. When you get close enough, you'll see the ball joint. Just pop that back in. So I say wear gloves so you don't get your fingerprints all over the chrome. And then you can roughly get it, this part flat, you can kind of see slightly angled. Alright, and then that's about roughly where you want to set it to start, and then you can aim it once you get it on the car and get that ready to go. Now that we got the bowls and the lenses clean, we now JB weld the shrouds on, and I'll show you a little 1-to-1 mix here. Get a little bit on your pick or whatever you use to. Just put a little bit. Take our driver's side, the one that we cut. Struggle to, push this on. Ask a buddy. Yeah. Clean the shrouds off once they dry and before we throw them in the oven. Alright, so now we're gonna get the lenses that we nicely wrapped up to, keep nice, dust free. Now we're gonna pick up the painted housings. Got these guys, nice, fresh. Well, now we got the painted part here, all finished. We have to clear back in there. So now we just gotta go install this in the lens and get ready to smush together. Get this unwrapped. I always lay down a nice clean microfiber or any towel you can set down to not scratch up the lens. Alright, now we grab the corresponding side.
So anyway, just out of business, we're looking for an L.
Now we have the front housing bolted into the lens. We get the other one, we'll do the same thing. Now we'll put these in the oven, get these nice and warm so that we can smush the lenses on them. We'll set our nice penguin timer to 15 minutes. And once that's done, we'll smush lenses. It's been 15 minutes, we'll take one out. You're gonna want to double check, make sure everything stayed clean. Get everything lined up. Put a few clamps here. We got our lens screws. Same for this side. Get all this excess glue off so that we can make sure that locking tabs are locked in, and we can see they're locked in. And these bottom two, take a screwdriver and we'll take the flat end, we'll just push along here. Get a nice clean finish. You don't have too much excess hanging out. Here's the final product. We got it all together. You buy the DIY parts, is how we do it. If you want to not do it yourself, if you want to send it in, we can got the whole kit. It'd be a night breaker set for you. We could make it and send it to you.
Thank you guys for watching today's video. I hope you learned something from Shane on how to retrofit your 02 to 03 Impreza WRX DIY kit. If you don't want to do it yourself, we can build them for you like we just did in this video. I'll put all the links to the products that we use below, the DIY kit, any of like the individual products that are inside of the kit as well, and then the full night breaker set along with our other collections of the bug eye headlights if you guys want to just purchase a full set instead of having to do this by yourself. Once again, thank you for watching today's video. Hit that subscribe button. We just passed 4,000 subs, so we're trying to grow the YouTube channel right now. We'll see you in the next one. Remember, we upload every Saturday at 10 a.m. So we'll see you in the next video next week. Bye. See ya. I gotta get back to work.